Welcome to On the Chain. This is Jeff here with co-host Chip. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to our fashionably late show. That's how we
Again.
roll. That is how we roll. We're getting the behind the scenes, getting everything ready. Why are we getting everything ready? We want to talk today about XRP being unleashed on 2024. Bitcoin unleashed on the community. What is going on in this crypto frenzy for 2024? How exciting is that? And what kind of moves is the SEC taking to stop all of it? What is Gary Gensler going to do? I don't know, but we're going to talk about it and we're going to dig in really, really deep until we figure it out. That's what we're going to do today, Chip. We got some announcements to make when we get started. Are you ready to kick this thing off?
Oh yeah, I'm ready. Let's do it. Are you
Big
saying it's going
announcement.
to be? Are you saying it's going to be a 3-hour show? No, it's not going to
It
be.
is going to be a 3-hour show minus,
2
2+
hours.
hours.
I got you. Okay, good.
So
Good
it's
to
gonna
know.
work.
Good to know. You ready? Let's go.
Welcome to On the Chain.
Welcome everybody. As you're coming in, Jeff drinking a little bit of coffee. I got the cold brew today, Jeff. I got the cold brew,
Man,
Obsidian
look at the
Bold.
size of this cup.
I like that. Badass Yetis, and I also have the hot brew of
Cold.
some Obsidian.
Yeah.
I'm rocking both hot and cold Obsidian. This is from earlier, and then I just made some cold brew, and I make my own cold brew, and it is phenomenal. And the Obsidian Bold, man, it's just so beautiful. If you guys
I'll
never
tell you
made
what,
cold brew,
I
it's
could
easy
fit
to
like
make.
3 Yetis in here.
Yeah,
3
3
badass
Yetis,
Yetis in this cup.
3 badass Yetis in there. Really good.
Mm.
Dropping guys where you are coming in from. I'll always like to see where you guys are coming in from. Yeah, right there. ASM Future. The podcast intro should include the line, "Welcome to the show. We're fashionably late." Every time. Weird part
Every
about
single
it is every time there is, Jeff's coming from a remote location, and it's either he or I have issues. There's always an issue. So like we make sure the sound check, we get on early, we do the sound check, and inevitably, right when we're ready to go live, something goes astray, and it's inevitable. And then something's
It's
not
very
working.
funny.
My mic's not working. Jeff can't hear me. I can't hear him. And you're like, well, you think you have it ironed out, but it's just how it works. But guys, great to have you
You
guys
think
here.
by now, South Carolina. Look at that badass
Carolina,
Yeti
the
right
house.
there.
That is one
Hey,
badass
with the
Yeti
badass
there.
Yeti.
And the good news
How
is,
many people have badass Yetis?
yeah, shortly we're going to be rolling out some new utility on the badass Yetis, which we're pretty excited about. Been in the works for a little bit of time, but we're going to be rolling out some, and it's going to be exciting. And again, we're over there on XRP.cafe. Go over to get yourself a badass Yeti. It's always a great thing. Look at this right here, Managua, Nicaragua.
Managua,
Kind of rhymes, doesn't it? Managua, Nicaragua. Okay, very
We
good.
got Panama. We got Nicaragua. We got Panama. And then we've got
Hey,
Michigan,
from Virginia. Hey.
Virginia, and Grosse Pointe Park,
Grosse Point. I know
Michigan.
Grosse
And
Point.
Michigan's got to be real nice and toasty right about now. I heard they got a lot of snow yesterday.
You're like, oh, please. That's like the worst thing when you think winter's going to start letting up. You're like, oh, it's almost March, the Ides of March. Here we are. And then you get dumped on snow. But, Jeff, you and I both logged some time in Michigan. I spent 4 years there, which was great. Here's Rough Rican having breakfast and coffee. I need to leave to Massachusetts unless John Deaton can win a seat here. And that's some of the big news is that John Deaton has been written up as going against Elizabeth Warren, taking her on. And all of a sudden now she's issuing certificates for Satoshi Nakamoto and all this stuff. Don't buy into it. It's an election year. It's a bunch of BS. They always run to the center. They run to try to put on a good face, but they're all just devious liars. So that's what happens there. You don't have to worry too much about that.
Yeah, crypto mining is at DFW, man. Dallas, Fort Worth.
There you go.
Do you know it can get cold in Texas? And
Yeah,
I never
I know.
knew it got cold in Texas.
Oh yeah, hell yeah.
It always
Dude.
some of those hot in Texas.
It's actually can get a lot colder in Texas than people think. Even in Dallas, I've seen it go like 28 degrees, 26 degrees. It's cold there, man.
Amazing.
It doesn't last long. Usually it warms up to like in the 30s, but still. I know my brother lives outside of Dallas, but just wanted to start off too is that Jeff and I will be at the Gold Coast, XRPL Gold Coast, which is happening just coming up in March, at the end of March. And this was just announced. Blockchain Backer will be there. He will be a keynote speaker there. Adding to John Deaton will also be there, which will be fantastic. You'll have you have Dirk from Expector. You have You have also Aaron McDonald, CEO, founder, along with Sharon won't be there, but Aaron will be there. Futureverse, really exciting as well. And it's just really fantastic to see all this. Now, what's really interesting is a lot of people are like, all right, Jeff, that's great, but I can't make it to Australia. Well, good news for you. They have this 2-day virtual pass, which is really, it's 128 US, which is not bad if you think about it. And the good news about it is you get all the keynote speaker sessions, you get the fireside chats, you get the builder series, and you can watch it back at any time. So you don't have to necessarily watch it live, which is good, right? The thing is, you go in and watch it at your own leisure, however you want to say that. And you can watch the playbacks. You can also win one of 25 John Deaton signed books. So you have a pretty good, solid chance there. And one of 3 Crypto Eddie Patreon memberships for a year. And I'm a Patreon of Crypto Eddie, and she puts out a lot of good content, especially a lot of stuff on upcoming things that are happening, but stuff that you don't even see on her channel. So that's really fantastic as well. And you're automatically entered. It's not like you have to buy the ticket and you have to enter somewhere. You're entered. You buy the ticket, you're entered. So 128 virtual pass for the show. And guess what? Jeff and I will be the MCs of that event. And I believe we're also doing a moderation of a panel event as well, which will be really super exciting for us. I'm dropping the link right there, so you guys can click on that. You can go ahead and purchase that for $120. So tell them Chip and Jeff sent you. So it's pretty exciting.
Tell them.
Blockchain backer. Hey, everybody. What's going on, everybody? Blockchain backer. Yeah, so that's pretty exciting too.
It's gonna be pretty cool. You know, it's like 38 hours of travel.
It's gonna be Jeff and I are gonna be hopped up on
leave on like a Tuesday
and whiskey.
It'll be City and Bold and Jameson.
Yeah, a little City and Bold and Jameson will keep us going for sure, man.
We'll be good. We'll always be real level. That'll be perfect.
Level. So that's
might not sleep.
That's one of the weird things, Jeff. I'm pretty good at sleeping on a plane. I actually have one of these contraptions that you blow up and you put your arms inside and you put your face down, like it looks like one of those massage tables where there's a hole there. You put your thing in, you can sleep on the table. So that's something that I get a good solid 3 to 4 hours sleep at a time.
That's crazy.
Which is not bad. And the problem with it is because it's a blow up and because you push that little thing in, for some reason, you know, you wake up and it's a little bit like deflated, like the air sort of came out a little bit. You got to pump it back up. When you pull that thing out of your backpack, people look at you like, dude, what's going on? It's like this weird, you're blowing it up, and but it works, man. Right. Also, too, I tried.
Just real quick, check this out. This is from Jared. He's been putting some comments in here. He said a Financial Times Jupiter Asset Management Compliance Division revokes investment in XRP traded fund product. Jupiter canceled its investment in an XRP exchange traded product due to compliance. Well, I didn't even know there was an ETP. As fund managers increasingly look to hold crypto assets in funds, but are unable to do so uniformly across the EU, that would be somewhere over outside of the US, over in the European Union. The problem lies with UCITS, an acronym for Undertakings for the Collective. There you go. And then Jared finalized that. I don't want to sound rude, but this is commentary on the event. He said, what do these events do other than raise money for the booths there? Actually, I think that there are booths there. The booths are actually helping to support the event, but these events are expensive to put on. The organizers will typically generate some sort of a margin on it. Hopefully they'll be on the plus side and not the negative side. If they're at a break even, there's a lot of time and effort that goes into putting on any event, hosting an event.
Let me clarify.
I don't know what side they're going to be on, but
let me clarify that. This is set up now. One of the things that you'll never see this. You'll never see this. Go to Vegas. The organizer collects the profit. Not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying that that's the way it's set up. It's a for-profit event. It's to make money. And when you put on an event like that, it's a lot of work. It's 6 months of planning, it's day in, day out. It's a lot of stuff. So when you put on an event like that, there should be something at the end of the tunnel, right? I know Brad Kime's putting on that event with a bunch of other people. The amount of work that goes into that, I don't know. Does he get paid enough in the end? I don't know, but I'm just saying that's a for-profit event where this is set up as a nonprofit. It's actually through an organization, a company that was set up as a nonprofit. So any additional funds goes directly into a grant program. All of the people that spent this time, energy for the last 6 to 8 months, and there's a lot of people there. Crypto Eddie's one of them. You know, there's just a ton of people that we can mention at another time. But I'm just saying the amount of time and energy that goes in that. They also have a builder series. They don't have a hackathon. They have a codathon. So they're going to have a codathon. So all of that money, anything additional will go into a grant program to help projects on the XRPL. So if you think it's about the boost, if you think it's about that, this is about bringing awareness to the XRPL. It's about real people. There's 4 people who are going to be speaking there from Ripple, but there's a ton of projects going to be there as well. I'll highlight some of them right here. But there you go. So X-Spectre will be there, Evernode, Merlin, obviously will be there, Bananados, another XRPL great project, Zertmon, a really successful NFT product, which is also a game. But this is all stuff. All these logos right here you see have something to do. Spend the Bits, Jay from Spend the Bits is going to be there. It's a
lot of cool
phenomenal
things, yeah.
And you'll never see something like this. The reason I say that is because the people that would have this undertaken just so that they can have it in Australia and show how strong Australia is and that they're a player in the space and they're doing this for the community. And this is community driven and it benefits the community. There's no profits going anywhere except into a grant program that will end up funding projects on there. So like Jeff said,
and that's pretty cool, man.
It's beyond cool. It's beyond cool. And again,
but I'll tell you what, you know how expensive these are to put on? I've been coordinating, organizing an event right now where we might be able to host like 50 or 60 people there. And the cost came back and we're looking at costs over $50,000 just to organize it, you know?
Yeah.
And so something like this, you know, when you get the hotels, you know, you're looking at like 600 people, you know, 700 people. Think about, you know, organizing, you know, everything, you know, locking it down, but then putting it all together, you know, it really entails a lot. So it'll be really great to see how this unfolds. You know, I'm looking forward to it. And, you know, there'll be, you know, some of the vendor tables there. And typically at their vendor tables and they're, you know, and you get time to wander, you know, walk around and see the vendors that are supporting, they're also paying, you know, for allocation and space to help offset these costs. So this is going to be, I think this is, you know, overall, this is kind of like a first of its kind for the XRPL at this level. Remember we went to the art thing down in Miami.
You know the thing, Jeff.
And
Yeah, the Art Deco
the
District.
NFT, the art NFT thing when we were down there. What was that thing called?
It was called NFT Miami 2023, I think is what it was called. It was right around this time last year.
And that was all Ethereum based. They had speakers and events, and that was a lot of fun to walk around. You know, this is going to be XRPL, you know, focused for Australia. You know, I'm excited to see that it isn't the first of its kind. You know, I think, you know, from this point, maybe they put on a roadshow and they're able to take it on the road, and maybe the next one is over in the US. Maybe they can organize something like that, you know, and take from all the successes that they put together for Australia. And all of a sudden it becomes Gold Coast. Maybe the next one's in Miami. Try to keep it out of California. But Miami would be a nice place for it. Maybe even, you know, Fort Lauderdale would be kind of cool for their next one. But man, there's so much development going on. You know, you brought up some key companies, even like Spend the Bits, you know, what Spend the Bits is doing to move Bitcoin across the XRPL and decrease cost of movement, you know, a transfer of the asset. So, and there's a lot going on. Could you imagine if Spend the Bits becomes the key mechanism for all of these different entities that are now getting into Bitcoin? Bitcoin is getting some prevalence in US in terms of mainstream institution adoption. We're starting to see more involvement in it, more excitement over it. And that's really key, especially with the ETF that rolled out. We see what's going on in Argentina and El Salvador. Imagine there's an adoption and say, okay, Bitcoin is legal tender. How do you now use it? What kind of platform do you spend it on? Imagine how Spend the Bits becomes the primary platform that they're using in El Salvador or in Argentina or wherever, but the identifier, the recognition of it probably hasn't even got to that level yet. So what is it going to take to boost it? I think community events like this bring it to a higher level, to a mainstream. Maybe the next event, this one has 600, maybe the next one has, a few thousand, and then
Right.
it changes the game. This is what it's going to take. This really is what it's going to take. Look at that comment.
Yeah, that's the kind of event that I want to support. Right. It's put on by the community for the community, and any excess, which we hope there's excess, will go into a grant program. Man, you're not gonna find anything better than that. Again, I'm not faulting anybody that does it for profit. I'm just telling you the magnitude of something that's done by a lot of volunteers, a lot of time, a lot of hours, all the stuff that has to be printed up for the event, the planning for it. Like Jeff knows, he's done these events before, and this is done on a big scale. So you've got a lot involved there. Jim D says the events are also good for cross-pollinating labor participants for new employment opportunities for technical and business folk, and that plays right into Rob McDermott's comment that says it's also networking. So you're going to see a lot of people that'll be networking, like-minded people, and if you buy the virtual ticket, you'll see the series, which is great. But going there, you're going to have that opportunity to network with like-minded people. That many people together, wherever you end up going, to an event like this, it's great to be in a place where people are like-minded, right? And Jared says, hope you guys have a safe trip and do well. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that.
You too.
Yeah, we hope so too. But look at this. This is stuff you don't see at these type of events. Now, Jeff and I go to these professionally. Jeff and I pay anywhere from $1,200, it used to be, it's $1,800 to $2,400 for usually a 2-day or they're usually 2.5 days, which is always odd. They always have that last day is like a half day. But here you go. Like, here's a Sunday conference menu. This is Crypto Eddie is going to be doing a cutting edge builders program, and she'll be hosting that. Sunday conference daily menu: morning tea, buttermilk scones, lashings of puff cream, berry cashew protein sphere. Look at the lunch selections: sweet potato, rocket, crushed chickpea, native pepper berry, Thai spice beef, fragrant herbs. Lunch salad, garden greens, selection of toppings, green, red kidney. Right. So there's look at these panko dipped chicken for lunch. Like this, these are like the event place is known for its culinary delights, right? It's a resort. People go there to vacation, right? It's not just like some hotel in a city. It's a destination type of a place. Of the Gold Coast, afternoon tea. There's a lot of stuff going on. That's just the Sunday one. There's an event every single night, which is going to be fantastic too.
See that comment, Chip? If badass coffee is on the menu, I'm there. Well, we're trying to figure out how do we get 6 pounds of coffee, or actually 13 pounds of coffee. How do we get 13 pounds of coffee, 6 kilo, over to Australia and figure out how to clear it through customs without it being caught up in customs? So for personal use, you can bring in up to, I forget what the number was, but I think it was like 10 kilo of coffee for your personal use. So how do you explain that we're bringing in 10 kilos of coffee for our attendance at a 3-day event? And we're like, yeah, we're going to be here for like 4 days. We drink a lot of coffee.
Drink a lot of coffee, man. Just leave it at that. What else?
If we can make that happen, it'll be awesome. Then we'll have a whole bunch of badassery coffee over there. So we're trying. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff we got to dig into here. We spent a lot of time talking about this event. We can talk more about it later. Wave of Innovation. Check us out. Be there. And we'll be emceeing it. It'll be awesome. We're looking forward to it. All right, let's move on. Let's move on to some news items.
We're gonna move on to some stuff here. Let's go.
I gotta check out what's going on over here on the. Let me check out what's going on Rumble. Sorry if I've been ignoring anybody on Rumble. I've only got one screen, and it's my laptop.
There you go.
I'm trying to see. Let me see what's going on over there.
Let's go here. So,
we got some comments. We got a bunch of people watching over on Rumble right now. We got El Jefe and Davey, and those two are commenting right now. But this goes back to where they're at. El Jefe was saying XRP Vegas was big last year. This year is going to be huge in Vegas. You guys should go. And then El Jefe is talking about, stay the hell out of Michigan, based on what we were talking about earlier. Just bringing everyone up to speed on the Rumble conversation. If you guys aren't on Rumble yet, you guys can go check us out on Rumble. You're over here on YouTube. Go check us out on Rumble. It's a lot of fun. Got a lot of Rumble stuff going on. So, all right.
Yeah. So I want to highlight this. This is this is Monica Long over here. She is she's the president of Ripple, and she there's an article that she commented on saying, as an industry, our mindset must be that compliance is non-negotiable. Learn why Ripple president Monica Long predicts compliance will have a breakthrough year in 2024. This article goes on to say that she predicts a shift from speculative hype circles to a new crypto era marked by on-chain compliance. And she specifically gets into, let me see, DeFi. So DeFi represents a shift from the traditional centralized financial systems to peer-to-peer finance. And the sector's market capitalization stands at almost $80 billion at the time of writing. According to data from CoinGecko, it's not by that chance that DeFi has drawn attention from regulators, of course, both worldwide due to potential compliance implications with existing financial laws. The U.S. is taking, steps to expand the oversight of cryptocurrency and DeFi, new rules by the SEC, redefining terms of dealer and government securities broker demand more participants. And this is what we brought this up before, just talking about the fact that they're making these rules and then they're citing, the 1933. I mean, how do you make rules based on where are the rules? Where are these rules coming in and changing what it means to be a dealer and all this stuff? So there's way too much latitude going on at the SEC and Gary Gensler, Jeff, don't you think? I mean, it's a little bit beyond.
Yeah, I don't know how she comes out and she's talking about this as a positive. I mean, I'm a little bit, torn on how she's talking about this, because we know that, and I get the line that she's walking. They've spent a lot of time bashing the SEC based on the lawsuit. But now they're saying, okay, look, here's what the SEC is actually doing from a compliance perspective. They're looking to further innovation. So maybe they're walking this line all of a sudden. I don't know why you walk that line when we know, and everybody here follows the news. We can see exactly what's happening. And as Gary Gensler still takes his very vindictive anti-crypto stance to tie in with what Elizabeth Warren's stance is. The two of them are pretty much in lockstep against DeFi, and they're doing all of that in support of the big financial institutions. And I think there's still a lot of resentment and bitter feeling from the big financial institutions that retail got into Bitcoin and into the crypto asset market first. And so there's all the big power players right now that are trying to level the playing field, and meaning that the financial institutions need to be back in charge and retail needs to be in check. And so when Monica Long, who Ripple is also big into working with these financial institutions and trying to carve a path to adoption for the RippleNet product. So now maybe, they're really trying to appeal to and appease the financial institution mantra, but at the same time, they're also rolling out CBDCs. So they're trying to become a little bit more in lockstep with central banks around the world. So they've been playing this really fine line. It's like, okay, we're in court, we're going to fight to the bitter end against the SEC. But as soon as we see a little bit of a path towards an outcome, now all of a sudden they want to try to play nice. That's this line that I'm seeing, and the two are kind of in conflict with each other. And, I agree with her, with positive compliance will create and foster real utility towards true mass adoption. What kind of compliance chip is she talking about, though, with the current SEC?
Yeah, again, I think you're right. A little more of a puff piece trying to promote the advantages of going to of having this mass adoption and promoting it so that there is some compliance. But the whole idea of compliance is that, maybe it's a message to Congress as well, because Congress is the one that really sets the tone there. And they've just been absolutely, utterly useless as can be. So that hasn't really, just horrible. So this is Daniel Villota from, he has that awesome Unchained Elephants projects. He says, hey, just drop by Thailand on the way back. Just, kind of on the way back, just dropped by there. And then Kelly says, that's how I got 7 bottles of rum into the US. They were gifts. So we just pull in. So Jeff and I will pull in 13 pounds of coffee. It'd be just gifts. We give a pound to each, pull the whole. And Jim D brings up a really good point. He said, I wish they would not try to take out DeFi with a bunch of KYC to centralize it all again. And this is so funny. It's like we have this decentralized sort of mechanism only to then centralize it again with the whole KYC. And he says the dark side of Ripple is they're all in bed with big government at their core. That's how we have the CBDCs, the carbon credits, this mechanism for control. The whole idea is like, I had said in a space recently that I really want to see, because I'd gone through the white paper. I'd read a lot of stuff about their CBDCs on the Ripple side. And somebody pointed out to me, actually put it out on a post on X and said, hey, they highlighted the line saying that they are programmable. Because that was like the one thing that Jeff, we were trying to get to the bottom of, like, are they programmable? We've heard all kinds of things. Well, benefits and it's great and you can, and it's easy. Okay. But if it's programmable, which we know they are, that's an issue. So I don't know the mechanism and how that works in the XRPL. But again, these aren't going to be you're not going to have any country that's going to be putting it on a public blockchain. So it's going to be a private blockchain or a private version, not exposed to the public. But then, like, what goes on over there and what kind of transparency is into the programmability? What kind of programmability? You can turn it on and off. I get that, but Jeff, like, how deep does it go? And that's where I'm not really clear on what that piece of it looks like.
Yeah, that is a concern. When we're everything that we're seeing unfold is bringing and consolidating power back into the hands of the few. So what we've seen happen over the course of the past couple of years, past 10 to 12 years with Bitcoin, it kind of the direction it's moving in was to try to centralize the power into the hands of the people, right? And so they wanted to create more leverage in the hands of the people. The problem is you're up against, deep-rooted power struggle with the central banking system, all the financial institutions, as well as government. So when government has an elitist structure, and they believe that the people are there at the will and whim of the government, then you have a problem. And the financial institutions are exactly the same, where they don't believe that they're there for the people. They believe that the people are kind of just a market segment for them, and so you start having issue, and what we're seeing, and you brought this up, and I think this is really key, is that Congress in the U.S. has been relatively defunct and inactive. We had some anticipation that over the past couple of years, since the red team took power of at least the House, granted they don't have power of the Senate, at least there would be some legislation put on the floor beyond just, hey, let's have a puff piece legislation to call for more discussion. And then you have the SEC, and we see a Monica Long that's patting the SEC on the back for trying to pass some rules while they're locked into this lawsuit where the SEC is obviously trying to undermine everything that Ripple has been doing in the space in regards to crypto and XRP and utility of the XRPL. So there's so much conflict, internal conflict. So Chip, the big issue here is how do you start parsing reality, fact from fiction? And I think that that's a major part of it. How much of this is just for media hype consumption for FOMO and FUD, and how much of it is real? How much of the FOMO and FUD is Ripple participating in? This is where personally I had a major issue with the Ripple party when they said, hey, we're gonna have this big celebratory party because of XRPL. I felt that was like a fluff piece, which it was a detractor and distraction from everything that they're working on. Even though it was like, hey, let's get the audience. Okay. But what it did was try to ingratiate everybody, back into the will of Ripple to say, look, don't look over here at our CBDCs. Don't look at what we're doing from a centralized perspective. Just keep looking over here and what's in our right hand, because that's real shiny. Look, we're going to bring a popular band. We're going to give you drinks and food. Keep looking over here. Keep looking and living in FOMO. Don't think about what's in our left hand. And that's the game that they're playing right now. And one of the things that you and I have talked about a lot about is that from a business perspective, Ripple's going to care about what they're going to care about, which is the RippleNet platform, which is trying to bring in financial institutions and try to help them move money, whether that uses XRP or not. It doesn't matter. They have to sell their product. They believe they have an amazing product that does include XRP and the XRPL and on-demand liquidity and all these great things. But the reality, that could take a decade to implement and then some. But right now they're just worried about how do we get more customers? How do we get more banks and more financial institutions on board with what we're doing? That's the reality of it. So, there's a lot of conflict and, controversy. We have to walk into it with our eyes wide open, and understand this. I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, I think so too. It's well
Yeah.
said. I mean, we have made critiques and criticisms and stuff, and it's like that's what you're going to get here. You're not going to get, I'm a fanboy of Apple, but Apple's made a lot of missteps, and I'll call them out every single time. I'm not a big fan of the CEO. And look, you can be a fanboy, but you have to be a realist as well. There's going to be times where Jeff and I maybe we just don't 100%, agree with some of the, the thing. And the funny, you kept saying reality. I kept hearing Eminem snap back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity. It was like banging in my head every time you said reality. I was thinking of Lose Yourself from Eminem. I was like, I always think of a song lyric when someone has a word that triggers me. So it's kind of funny there. But I want to play this video, Jeff. This is interesting because Joe Kernan, who's over there at CNBC, he's kind of been hit and miss on Bitcoin and the whole crypto in general. But what's interesting here, there's an exchange they had Gary Gensler on the show, and here's this exchange. So pay attention to what Joe Kernan says here. What's that?
Gary.
There we go.
You've seen the comments, right? It's not just that he closed down, that he would say it's used by drug dealers and used by folks who are doing all.
So this is good, right? They already start off by hitting him on the narrative. It's used by drug dealers and this and that. And you can't. There's going to be years, Jeff, before we catch up to how the banks launder money. If you launder $1 billion and you get hit with a $20 million fine, man, it's kind of like if you said, like, would you rob a bank if all that happened to you got slapped on the wrist and paid a fine? You'd be like, yeah, we'll steal money all day.
Did you see all the banks that were hit with fines over the past couple of weeks?
It's been
big fines, big numbers.
But again, it's a protected institution, and crypto is the outlaw. The only reason that crypto is the outlaw is because it's the answer, right? It's decentralization. They're trying to centralize it, just like Jim D keeps bringing up, trying to bring this whole thing into some sort of a centralized sort of a control. The problem is that genie's out of the bottle. You're not going to put it back in. They're going to lose eventually. That's why you see everybody jumping in head over, fist. They're just jumping into this whole thing. Look at this right here. That's
illicit and terrible things. There's very few things that trade today that people talk about like that. Now, there are obviously frauds and things that happen, but maybe not like this.
Like the dollar is like 100 times more.
Well, I know that's your perspective, but I'm just I'm curious how you think about that.
But that's true, though. This is how much has been money laundered with Bitcoin. This is how much. This is Bitcoin. This is dollar.
Yes, Joe.
See, like you're hitting him with a case of reality, and this isn't where he's sitting on some panel, where it's all controlled. The questions. This is a live spot. And he's going to get the hands out and he's going to start peddling his bullshit, right? And Joe Kernan says this is how much has been peddled, with Bitcoin illegally. And he can't even get his hands a little hot under the pits there, a little wet under the pits there, but he can't get his hands wide enough. Like he doesn't have wide enough hands to talk about what's been laundered with the banks.
Look, here's the Jamie Dimon quote.
This is how much has been money laundered with Bitcoin. This is how much. This is Bitcoin. This is dollar.
Yes, Joe. Look, here's the Jamie Dimon quote. The only true use case for it is for criminals, drug traffickers, money laundering, and tax avoidance. I know, but we have a guest.
That's his opinion.
We have a guest, Joe. What is your opinion?
We have a guest. So
we have a guest. Where does this guy?
About this guy. This guy is a complete shill for the establishment. Yep. This guy's paid. He's bought. He does softball interviews, and he tells Joe Kernan to just basically go F yourself.
Yeah,
we have a guest.
We have a guest.
We have Gary Gensler on here. That wasn't one of the questions. Look at that, Jeff. I just triggered some balloons. I don't know. How I did that,
How'd
but
you
that was
do that?
cool. I don't know. I did something.
Yeah.
Did some
All of a
hands-
sudden, there's balloons.
I did this. I don't know.
Yeah, and all of a sudden they're balloons. Right?
There's balloons. I
Every
don't know.
so
What
often
happened.
you get balloons. You don't
Yeah.
even know where they come from.
I don't even know what it is. Who knows? It's something that gets triggered out of StreamYard. But so this guy, Joe, shut your mouth. We've got a guest. It's the Honorable Chair Gensler from the SEC. So he turns to him. Okay, what do you have to say? I mean, this guy's at least I got to give Joe some credit. He smashed him right in the face with it. And shut up, Joe. We got to pretty much. Speaking of that, ETH Denver's coming up again. I hope we get more of that.
Yeah,
And what is your
Denver,
opinion
yeah,
that we
Denver.
have something trading on the exchange for the public that has this type of use case, at least as described by the president of one of the largest
leading market
financial
share
institutions in the company?
It's the leading market share in ransomware, and that's publicly known.
Right.
You know, it's the token.
Can you imagine that you are such a lame stooge that your comeback is it's the number one thing used for ransomware? Now let's talk about ransomware is even thinner than a hair. Okay, so there you go. Gary Gensler, the complete SEC back with nothing. He's got zero. He's got zero game. This guy.
Well, they're going to hyper focus on that because and then they put out puff pieces on ransomware and on fraud, on email fraud. It's kind of like the Nigerian prince. So I would say that the Nigerian princes only trade in Bitcoin now. It used to be, I'll give you my bank account and you'll transfer me $1 million. I'll give you 5 million or 20 million, whatever. Now the Nigerian princes, somewhere else. They're no longer Nigerian princes, but they're now trading in Bitcoin. They're Bitcoin princes. So it's the same nonsense.
They track down the wallets, Jeff. It's not like they don't find these guys. Like okay,
Exactly.
so you're not using a bank account, but they track it. They find out where it's going. They bust these guys all the time because they're using a public address on the blockchain. And it's enumerable. So come on.
Of choice for ransomware. Joe, if I can say, the U.S. dollar, the euro, the yen, you have the whole society using it as a medium of exchange. We buy our cups of coffee, as I see here. Right. We get paid in dollars or yen or euro. And you have a whole central bank and support for one currency generally per economic region. That we don't have here. So there is a very real economic difference.
Which is part of the...
Okay, so
what is
Jeff,
he saying though? That just
he basically said that every country you have a fiat currency, which is the predominant currency of that country, whether it's yen, whether it's USD. So what? Generally, when you live in a country, you speak a language, and usually goes with the country. It's like it's throwing out a randomness that has no meat to it. It's zero.
But he didn't even say that though. He didn't even say it was the sovereign right of a country. He said in a financial region. There's typically one currency in a financial region, and then he alluded to $3 the euro. Yes, there's a financial region in Europe. What about Latin America? Is there a Latin American currency? For Latin America? No, there isn't. Oh, guess what? They each have their own sovereign currencies, but they're using the USD as a reserve currency. But there isn't, but they might be using their own currency when they're trading or when they're doing stuff. Regional. Each country has the sovereign right to maintain their own currency, whether it works or it doesn't work. Just like we saw in Venezuela, due to their own internal political chaos, they led to millions of % of inflation. They went from a predominantly self-sufficient country with major exports of gas, and they were a major producer of beef product. And then due to bad policy, they turned around and became a crappy country with crappy economy, but they had their sovereign currency. So he should be talking about each country has their sovereign currency. He's not even talking about reserve currencies, because if we want to go to a global stage, there's one reserve currency, and that's the US dollar. There's one primary trade currency. It's been the US dollar. There isn't a financial region currency. I don't even understand how he's even alluding to something like that. And he's going to spew this kind of nonsense.
He's not making a really strong point. I mean, his comeback was, okay, well, Bitcoin's used for what did he call it?
Or ransomware.
Ransomware. I mean, come on, we don't even hear. Ransomware. It's like split a hair. I mean, it's ridiculous conversation. This
And they're
guy,
not even calling him out.
well, that's the whole thing is like when you go on CNBC, you notice he doesn't go on Fox Business. Fox Business calls his ass out, right? So if he goes on with Charles Payne will hammer the hell out of this dude. He'll destroy them, you know? If he goes on, but he won't go on there, right? Even with Liz, she'll destroy him. But no, he goes on there with the softball question. Excuse me, Joe, we have the guest. In other words, shut up. We got Gary Gensler here. Yeah, the Nigerian prince. Where we go.
On Monday, I'm so excited. And he's sending in Bitcoin. He's sending you in Bitcoin, I heard.
Well, that's fantastic. Yeah. And he said, by the way, Ray Run said that was truth, not his opinion. So anyway, let's listen in the rest of this. It's just watching a I can't take it with this guy.
Attraction, since it's decentralized, and you can't have a profligate central bank.
It's not that decentralized, Joe.
Well, I know you're saying because of the ETFs, but really it is.
No, it's
for
not
DeFi
that decentralized
and everything.
because look how finance tends towards centralization since antiquity.
Right.
So what do we have? We have a handful of 3 to 6 core so-called crypto
I understand, but the
exchanges.
asset itself, the way that
That's
the
how the
distributed
accounting
ledger, right? That's how the ledger. And
now, how many times do you have people on this show that say, "I want to invest in something because how the books and records are kept"? I mean, Joe, really? It's just an accounting ledger, a clever.
it's a ledger that everyone has, and can't be double counted. It's almost immutable. That's why people think it has.
Not almost immutable. It is immutable. That's the whole core. That's the whole core principle of Bitcoin, Jeff. And maybe Joe Kernan doesn't know enough to go head to toe, but he's in the right direction, and he's telling him that it's decentralized. And he's like, it's not that decentralized. All right. Well, if it's not that decentralized, why are you saying the only cryptocurrency that is able to exist is Bitcoin? And now we know it's XRP because of the court ruling. But this guy is completely paid for and bought and owned by the Dem shills. This guy, right, Gary Gensler. And he comes back with no point.
So you trust it more than an Oracle database, or you trust it more
trust
than
it more than a lot of the Bitcoin
company.
bulls say they trust it a lot more than the central bank that enables the fiscal authorities to spend money to the tune of $33 trillion.
Look at this. He's just
What a solid point.
He's just destroying him here, Jeff. Joe Kernan. He's like taking him to the thing. He says, of course. All right. Do we trust the central bank? I mean, no knock on Oracle, but it's a centralized organization, right? It's a centralized company versus Bitcoin that anybody, if you want, you can download the whole Bitcoin, blockchain to your desktop, and you can have it from the Genesis block all the way up till now, and you can go back and see every single transaction that's ever been done.
Yep. And look at the guy. Look at the guy on the left. Look at his posture. He's kind of facing in his direction. He's turning away from Joe. He's kind of got this submissive posture, look in his face, kind of like, hey, he's making some strong points, but Gary, I know you're going to have a good comeback because I have faith in you. That's based on his posture. Look at him kind of holding his hands, and he's like, I know Gary's going to respond to this. I know he's got a comeback.
He's got nothing, and he's right. He's like, it's not even almost immutable, but he's right. The thing about when you go with centralization, and this is the whole key to the blockchain, is that it's public, right? So if one of these guys does some ransomware, you're sending it to an address. You eventually track down that address. You can go deep and figure out and find out where they're moving that money to at some point along the line, or some KYC. They're going to make a mistake. They're going to find these people. Now, when he says like it's almost immutable, well, the thing about it is, if you're a centralized organization, a company, and you have all your stuff in an Oracle database, it's not it's not for public consumption, where the blockchain is for public consumption, right? It's holding a huge difference.
Perfect audit mechanism, and that's what Gary he's trying to undermine. So you think people want to invest in an accounting system? You think they care? Well, yes, because it's an accounting system that has zero centralized control and can't be corrupted, can't be changed. It is what it is, and it has a finite amount of asset available in it, and people are putting their trust and faith in this accounting system to say that we have more faith and trust in this, and here's our perceived value. We have an accepted perceived value across the world of what the Bitcoin from this accounting structure is now worth. And you bring up a good point from an audit perspective. You can go back and look at every single transaction, and it's private to a point because you need special companies to go into then go and kind of analyze and track the trail and figure out the wallet addresses and all of this. If we went to a private individual, we need a little more privacy on it. But from a corporate perspective, from a government perspective, if we're going to have a full audit of their system, this is the best way to do it. Put it into this accounting system. Put it into a completely transparent, decentralized accounting system that can't be corrupted. Numbers can't be adjusted. We can't have fictitious. We can't just have politicians giving us lip service to say we're $33 trillion in debt. Okay, what does that exactly mean? Why are you printing us into oblivion? But then if you're going to transfer $100 billion over to the Ukraine, as an example, let's have an accounting measure as to how every last Satoshi is utilized. I want to see, to the decimal point, how much of the Bitcoin was transferred, what was it used for, how many people were paid off with it, how much Bitcoin ended up in somebody else's side wallet, what was purchased, was it military armament, how much of it came back to the US companies to provide military assistance or food assistance, or how much of it just kind of dissolves into the ecosystem, which is what happens with the US dollars. Here's 100 billion. Okay, well, how much of that's coming back here, for trade and support? Zero of it? What's going on with it? And so, that's what this guy doesn't, he knows it. Gary knows it, and he's just undermining the entire nature of it in support of his, centralized mechanism.
Right. He's not engaged in a conversation that has any logic or reason in it, right? He's coming from a standpoint of ideology. We're anti-crypto, here's why, but he taught for 3 years over there at MIT, where he was stolen the virtues of why not only Bitcoin, but a lot of other altcoins were fantastic, and pros and cons to it. But as soon as you get bought and paid for by one of these dem shills over here, now you're going to be all over it. Yeah, sometimes
look at that comment.
That's everybody's investment.
Look at that comment real quick.
It's called auditing, which the Federal Reserve has never allowed the United States government to audit the books. And Jeff and I have been all over this, where I believe in the next administration, there will be an audit of the Fed Reserve. It's my thought that the Federal Reserve is going to go away. Why? Because twice in history, it was removed. And if you see Andrew Jackson, which was the portrait hanging in Trump's office, he was the one that killed the second central bank. Central bank was never, the founders were not big on the central banks. It's not, you see a lot, you see some chatter about it throughout but central banks have been really enslaving for the public, because it's a debt instrument. You got to borrow $1, then you got to borrow another $1 to pay the debt on the first $1, and it just spirals out of control. And nobody knows. This is a great point that's being brought up by XRP Plumbing, because if you think about it, they say this is our balance sheet and this, okay, but let's audit the books. Let's find out where they're moving the money, because they're getting paid on the debt. So they're getting paid interest. So let's see where they've invested their money. What nefarious areas have they put it into? Are they putting it into China? Is it going over to some other sort of maybe questionable areas? I bet you that there's probably a lot more money that can be recovered on the Federal Reserve balance sheet than we even know about. So that's a good point. You first audit it, then you close it down. You create a real sovereign currency that's based on blockchain, and you're done. There you go. But this is the threat of blockchain, why politicians are scared, senseless. And this latest, you brought this up, Jeff, in the latest round of bringing up this funding for Ukraine, one of the things that the Republicans wanted to put in there was trackable. They wanted it all tracked. They wanted an audit trail, and they said no. Why? Because it's a money laundering operation. We saw that through FTX, where the money came back into FTX, went to Ukraine, came to FTX, and FTX went right directly to the politicians' pockets, right? Okay, politicians, no one's going to call them on that. It's money laundering, right? But if you're a government official, it's fine. So they don't want that, because they know that it's going into yachts and it's buying this and it's buying all kind of lavish things. But they didn't want the audit trail. You got to ask yourself why, because it's pretty obvious why they didn't want the audit trail.
Choice, but
and then I think about how many things can be used in a deleterious way Of course, but that has nothing to do with the underlying thing that you're using itself. I mean, I can go run a car into a parade and run over 40 people. That doesn't mean we shouldn't have cars, does it?
No. You should have cars.
I wasn't going to
Joe.
use guns because, God, I don't want to trigger, so to speak, anyone on the set. But
Joe says he doesn't want to trigger. Joe just made.
My God, that was oh my God, that was too funny. And he looked at. I don't want to trigger anyone on the set.
Looked over at Soy Boy
over at the guy over there.
Soy Boy with the.
Oh my God, that's so awesome. That's so funny.
He has to check his shorts right now because he's like, you did not just say that.
Oh my
on
God,
the leftist show. I mean,
when the use case of a particular thing that you're buying
a car into a parade and run over 40 people, that doesn't mean we shouldn't have cars, does it?
No. You should have cars.
I wasn't going to use guns because, God, I don't want to trigger, so to speak, anyone on the set. But
the best part about it is that he didn't want to say it, but he said it anyways.
He doesn't want to trigger anyone on the set. He looks right over at Soy Boy, right?
But I love it. He's like, oh yeah, well, I use cars because I couldn't use guns because I don't want to. I love how he avoids doing it because he doesn't want to trigger, but then he says it anyways. He just puts that jab in there and just twists the knife a little bit further.
Did you notice how he used an analogy and he got Gary Gensler to agree? So he's using the idea of cars. You're not going to take a car and run into a parade and maybe obviously have some mortalities there, right? He's like, you can do that. Oh no, we shouldn't have cars. Okay, so let's replace cars with Bitcoin. Nefarious stuff happens, but doesn't mean we shouldn't have Bitcoin. He just basically acknowledged Joe's point of yes, we should have Bitcoin, but he used cars. And he looked over at Soy Boy and said, I don't want to trigger. Oops. Yeah, I love this segment with Joe because sometimes I don't always agree with them, but it's great to see somebody on that set standing up and shut up.
Oh my God.
This was a great segment. I really enjoyed this a lot. Let's listen to Gary again. So, of course, we should have cars. Of course, we should have Bitcoin, Gary. You just got duped, my boy.
But when the use case of a particular thing that you're buying and selling as an investment is just speculative investment.
How many of the 90% of the people that own Bitcoin are using it for ransomware? There must be another use case that makes it so attractive to so many people.
Speculative investing.
Right. Speculative investing. That's what. Okay. Let me ask a separate.
Okay, shut up, Joe.
It. See how he's been waiting? He's been waiting for Gary to say something that he can see. It's also speculative investing.
Now, the funny part about it, so I have a good buddy who said, the U.S. dollar is backed by something. I'm like, well, please explain it to me. What is it backed by? It's a piece of paper or it's a coin. The pennies cost more to mint than they're actually worth. So explain to me exactly what it's backed by. It's backed by an idea. And he's like, well, the U.S. government. I'm like, what does that mean? That doesn't mean anything. Well, the U.S. military, what does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. So it's based on an idea. Now, when we look at cryptocurrency, we look at Bitcoin especially. Yeah, man, if you purchased at $1,000, if you bought it in at 25,000, you just doubled your holdings. It was only 3 months ago where it was sitting at 25,000. Now it's circling around 50,000. So when you tell me speculative, people are go to El Salvador. There's everyone's carrying a mobile phone and they're transacting in Bitcoin everywhere, right? So and when Bukele told the World Bank to go, F yourself, and they're pissed at him. They do not want a guy showing you that you don't need a central bank. You can use something called Bitcoin. You can use other altcoins to be able to get by and bypass all this garbage. And it can be on your phones and it can be, you can do transactions. It's amazing to me where you have to go on a show like Gary Gensler goes on there and he just can't bring a point that makes any sense. And Joe Kernan just outplayed him.
That's it. There's some good comments here. XRP plumbing, people's faith that they'll be able to spend the $10 face value. That's only backing us. The faith that the government, is structured in such a way that society is structured in such a way that I can take the $10 out of my pocket and I know that the store will recognize it as $10 value and they'll give me equal value in product. That's how it should be. But now due to inflation, that $10 note that used to have more buying power has less buying power because my perceived value of that $10 should have allowed me to buy 2 gallons of milk when I go to the store. But due to inflation now, that 2 gallons is now $20. so I can only get 1 gallon of milk with my $10. So the valuation has shifted due to government policy, and that is definitely corrupted. So want to give a big shout out to XRP Plumbing also for the support. Appreciate you on that. And Ray Run, how many stocks are speculative? They're talking about speculative, so if Bitcoin is speculative, how many of the stocks that we're investing are all speculative? The whole idea is that they're going to increase in value, right? We don't want them to stay the same. We want them to increase in value. And we're speculating based on all of these different factors that this company can take the stock share from $50 to $100. So I can double my money, or it's going to go from 50 to 70. I'm speculating on the fact that they can do that. Netflix has gone up, 30+% over the past month or so. Let's say a month ago, we're speculating that Netflix is going to do better. What rationale do you have to say that their finances might be good? This might be good. If I was to compare it to another company that might be doing equally as well, but that company didn't go up 30%, we're speculating. So Ray Run has a really solid point there. Gary doesn't.
Look at Palantir. So, you bought Palantir at $9. It's up to $25 right now, $25. So it's just in a very short. But again, the other thing that I draw parallels to is that when you look at the P&L statement, when you look at public earnings, when you look at the risk, you always read the risk statement. Like, what's the risk? What could happen? They always talk about maybe the competition or a change of sort of attitude towards a particular item, what it could change in the space. A new competitor comes up. But the one thing that stock doesn't correlate with is earnings. So you might have an earnings report where you're upside down on a quarter, where the street thought you would bring a couple cents more, and then you missed the mark, but somehow the stock went up. So it's like, that's not the definition of speculative, where the balance sheet and the earnings does not actually match what happens with the stock going up and down. We've seen it with NVIDIA, right? NVIDIA has had really positive quarters, and you see the stock is reflected, but you didn't buy NVIDIA because you were hoping that, well, I just hope it stays the same for, like a stable. There's no such thing as a stable stock. You have stable coins, but it's just, to me, the whole thing is ridiculous, Jeff. But let's go back and let's listen to the rest of this. But we hammered this enough, but it was a good exercise here.
Which is just to pivot this, because I think the next speculative investing, that's what, okay. Let me ask a separate question, which is just to pivot this, because I think the next sort of order event question is what happens to Ethereum. For those in the crypto world, they all want to know how you're thinking about that. And really, if Ethereum is a security, how does that analysis differ from how?
Jeff, you want to take bets on what he's going to say on this, Len? So who believes that Gary Gensler is going to say, I'm not going to talk about any one individual. This is his go-to answer. I'm not going to talk about any one individual digital security. I mean, digital asset, right?
Right.
Is he going to say something along those lines? What do you think he's going to say?
Crypto security. I'm not going to comment on a crypto security.
Yeah, I'm not going to comment on this. I don't comment on individual. Dude, we're asking you about one. You were cool to engage in the conversation around Bitcoin, but now he's asking them. So he's asking them a good question, like, what do you think about ETH? Is it a security?
What do you think about Bitcoin?
What we did in January was cabin to one set of filings. We have other filings. You're absolutely right in front of us, but I'm not going to prejudge it for you or the audience. That's something that a 5-member commission discusses and reviews.
Just an empty suit. This guy, he really is just an empty suit.
It just kills me. The 5-person committee. So they're going to review the status of an Ethereum. So somehow we've all, what he's saying is that this entire economy, this entire infrastructure that is being set up, the outcome is being dictated based on a 5-member, non-elected, appointed committee of bureaucrats that don't give an F about the positive economic direction that this country is moving in. They're going to be subservient in their decision making to those who appointed them to the unelected position. They're beholden to those who gave them the power of the 5-person committee. It's so disgusting that there is even a 5-person committee sitting in the SEC that can make any kind of decision on anything. Put this in front of the people to vote on. If we want to make a determination, do we think Ethereum is a security or is Bitcoin a security? Because it doesn't fit into the narrative, just like XRP had to go through a court case to have an outcome. Why don't we put it out there? Do we want Bitcoin and other crypto assets to be legal tender? That should be on the voting block. Let the people vote. Yes, I want it to be legal tender. Okay, now that we voted on this infrastructure that we think it should be legal tender, now let's start identifying what that means. And then maybe you need to have another vote, but it should come back to the people. Unfortunately, even that part of the system is corrupted because you're not going to have a fair outcome. And if they did put that kind of a question on the ballot to vote on, it'd be so convoluted and confusing when you read it. People are going to answer the wrong way because they're not going to understand what it means.
That's right. Look at this by Jim D. Everything is speculative unless you know about the corrupt inside private deals between government and corporations. Absolutely 100%. Rob McDermott here. Listen to Gary this much this morning is like starting your weekend by getting waterboarded. Yeah. And yeah, it's very good. And Rob, I hope you're going to be heading to Australia with us. I know there's a bunch of people that are going over there, and it'd be great to see you over there as well.
See, that's a new thing called ETH, digital asset security. That came right out of Gary Gensler's playbook.
Yeah, that's a good point there, Kelly. I mean, it is funny to see that, and they were the only ones that were authorized, right? They were green lighted by the SEC. So I know that you have digital asset investor DAIs constantly banging the drum about ETHgate. You see a lot of other players on that. I'm in the camp of like, yeah, did it happen? Yeah, but guess what? There's tons of Jim D brings up all the time. This is just one thing. There's thousands of these things, right? You're just isolating this one. You think you're going to be able to flip a switch and people are going to go down. We all know it was, why did they go over after ETH when we know that it was an ICO? They didn't call it an ICO, but it was actually an ICO. We had whales buying in anonymously. All this, I want to talk about nefarious stuff. It was centralized, and then it became decentralized over time. But do I want to fight that fight, or do I want to fight the fight of let's bring developers, let's bring building the XRPL, let's extol the virtues of why it's fantastic to build on the XRPL, and let's push the whole idea of smart contracts. Someone said on a space yesterday, I think it might have been Vet, where he said, I'm sick and tired of calling it hooks. Just call it what it is. It's smart contracts. And what's missing on the XRPL are smart contracts, where you have to have guys like Weitza Win's team over there, and you have to have some others that are building, like Evernode, building it on a side chain when it should be functional on the main chain. And that was basically railroaded inside it and killed. I speculate that it might have been Ripple and maybe for good reason, because they're worried about bringing too much functionality to an XRPL, which has been very clean and had a very specific sort of set of values. But think about it. Stefan Thomas, who was the former chief tech officer from Ripple, all of a sudden this little kid, he wants to be an intern over at Ripple, and his name's Vitalik Buterin, and he's couch crashing over there at Stefan's. And they start talking about smart contracts, and he leaves. He can't get his visa. He goes off and starts Ethereum. Okay, so there's your pivotal moment. You can say what you want, but Vitalik sees the moment. Vitalik said, I see smart contracts being so vital to this space. It brought tons of builders. Yesterday on a space with Blockchain Builder on the Wave of Innovation space, Blockchain Backer brought something very interesting up, where he said he went in, he spent so much time analyzing with data and to see what happened in 2021, 2022, but in 2023, he was looking back at all the development that was happening, right? Which developers were contributing. And what he found was pretty alarming, that the top 25 had the most activity. And why did you have all those why did you have all these ERC20 over there on Ethereum? Because people were building like crazy. Everybody flocked to Ethereum to build. And everyone's like, high gas fees. It didn't matter. It was the first mover advantage. And so what happened consequently, where Ripple sat in that whole equation was like 50. And then out of like major, erosion over time was like a 250. And he talked about EOS. Remember, EOS was like the Ethereum killer. That he showed that over time that started with a lot of development activity and waned, and that thing fell apart and just it blew up. So if you don't have development, Ripple's not the savior. The savior are bringing people over to the XRPL and having them build that are using XRP. And Jeff, you brought up a great point. Ripple will look after Ripple. Ripple cares about its internal shareholders, the people that that they have to report to, but they need to be profitable. They need to make money. They need to sell their software. They don't have time to focus on community. The community will focus on community, but I want to see them honor their core tenet of giving out this money. They gave $100 million over to Forte, which is a gaming company, and said, spend it the way you want. And we brought up the whole idea. If you spend $100 million and you give 100 projects $1 million each, 90% of them can fail, but that 10% could bring that massive influx of people over and onboarding companies or onboarding individuals to the XRPL. And that's a little bit short rant. I know I was going to get on that whole rant, but that's where we're at. We have to be able to, again, we talk a lot about Ripple. They're doing great things, but again, they're not the savior. They're the same way in the lawsuit. They had nothing to do with something decentralized. It has to stay decentralized. The community, you vote, and this whole thing with incentives and running nodes, I don't care about any of that. I want to see people build on the XRPL, and I want to see them incentivized. And if Ripple can support that, great. If we can have VCs come in, but we're missing smart contracts. That is a big starter, Jeff.
It's a major issue, and the XRPL is way behind. They're behind the eight ball, So whatever Vitalik did or didn't do in launching Ethereum, whether the XRPL was designated to do it on their own, he has first mover advantage. The fact that he saw the big play, he took the risk on it, blew it up, and now the entire crypto space is what it is today because of Ethereum. We wouldn't have the crypto presence that we have if Ethereum didn't exist. Ripple wasn't going to make that, wasn't going to accomplish that. The XRPL wasn't going to accomplish it. Bitcoin wasn't going to accomplish it. If it wasn't for the ERC20 tokens, we wouldn't have had the mass number of investment and involvement in building in crypto. And to your point, with all the smart contracts, the ERC20s, the NFT marketplace, all these different parts of development within the cryptocurrency space is all because of Ethereum. So regardless of the Ethereum Foundation and the Lubins and all this other stuff that is, kind of a smokescreen and is boardroom discussion behind closed doors, regardless of what maybe there was a motivation, if it wasn't for that, none of this would be existing right now. It would be a whole different conversation. It would be Bitcoin, and maybe that's it. Maybe it would just be Bitcoin, and maybe it would still be in the computer geek circles where it would have gained no notoriety, no mainstream recognition. The media wouldn't be talking about it. The SEC wouldn't be talking about it. It would all be behind. It would be computer stuff. But the fact that Bitcoin got to a certain point, Ethereum brought it to another level, and I think that's the point. And lower levels bringing up, talking about the smart contracts, all what you were bringing up also very, very key. We need more investment in the XRPL, and that's what Ethereum has done phenomenally with the Ethereum Foundation, is the amount of money that is tied into the projects that allow them to develop and flourish. But they also was like open source, right? Even though the XRPL is somewhat open source, Ethereum, here you go, build on it, develop it. Here, it's kind of like Microsoft. There's like a Microsoft Apple battle right now, and Ethereum did better than anybody else. They basically said, here's the software, you provide the hardware. And that's what people did, and they excelled at it. And that's why you have ERC20 everywhere. Why is XRPL so far behind? Why is Ripple sitting on billions of XRP and not investing in the space? And they're supposed to be kind of the overseers of the escrow account, but they're utilizing it for small projects. To your point, with that gaming company, why give them $100 million? Why give them $10 million? Why not invest $1 million in 10 companies? Why not invest $1 million in 100 separate projects? Why not give them 500,000? We analyzed it. It came down to like $2,000 a month for a project. The projects that were able to get the money, $2,000 goes nowhere in the development of the space or the ecosystem. Ripple's focused on what they're focusing on. I think if they can pull off what they want to do with ODL and the banking infrastructure and their CBDCs, it could go a long way, but they're going to keep pushing in a centralized direction while they're trying to support. They're giving the chump change right now to the XRPL. They had the Ripple X. It's severely underfunded. It's not able to do what it needs to do. We need another mega player that comes out. It can't be Ripple. There has to be another mega player that identifies the XRPL as a phenomenal build tool, and they have to invest hundreds of millions in that in order to get it to the next level. Who's that player going to be? And maybe it's multiple players. It's got to come from the community somewhere. It's going to come together, but people have to see value in the XRPL that it can compete with Ethereum. Right now, Ethereum has first mover advantage, developing all these projects. Where are the smart contracts? Where's the XLS20 or the XLS30 or the NFTs? Where is that space? It's severely lagging.
Yeah, and there's no there, and this is why it has people like why Jeff and I are looking at other chains, and why Jeff and I when we had some investment in support from a company in the Netherlands. This is why when we were asking another company, we were asked to talk to another chain that was partnered with an organization that was interested in a pilot that we were talking about. This other chain said, "What do you guys want? How much? What do you need? We can give you technical resources. We can give you an investment. We can give you a grant. Tell us what you need." We're like, "We want to build on the XRPL because it does X, Y, and Z." They're like, "That's fine. How much do you need?" This is what's broken in our system. That's exactly what's broken, that kind of thing. And Daniel's bringing up a good point, saying, unfortunately, the XRP is well behind, and it's hard to find devs to work on simple projects. It's really sad. We've encountered the same thing. You can't even find a dev that wants to even entertain building on it. And it's kind of pathetic. Jim D brings up the point that how is that young guy named Vitalik, who camped out on Ripple's principal sofa all by himself, invented the smart contract idea, BS. That there's industry/government collaboration there.
Probably
I don't,
right. There might have been industry,
but I do think it was his. We know that this main idea, and again, they chose to focus on payments, but with smart contracts, the payments would have done so much better because there could have been a lot more to the execution of that. And to me, if you don't bring smart contracts, I don't like the sidechain idea. I understand what YETIS team's doing over there, and I understand what Evernode's doing. I applaud them, but their main goal would have been to build on the XRPL directly on main chain with smart contracts. Call it hooks, whatever. You don't like the hooks amendment, refine it, but it has to have this functionality, and that's killed the XRPL sort of investment all the way. So
what about the clawback? I think the clawback is an interesting idea that helps in the payment space, because if you're sending, there should be a mechanism. It has to be done through a smart contract, but if you send it, there should be a mechanism to pull it back. You have companies like PayPal. Someone was talking about PayPal earlier, that they think maybe they're using the XRPL because there's a mechanism for that. PayPal has been
But here's the thing, the clawback does not apply to XRP. It only applies to coins that you spin up. So if you spin up a coin in the XRPL, it only applies to those coins, those tokens. It does not work with XRPL. And that you have to designate that ahead of time too. So there's some rules of engagement, how that works. It's not like you can pull back payments, and it can't be used for the XRP. So that's where, that clawback thing is only really applies to a very small set of people that have spun up a token on the XRPL, so it doesn't apply to XRP.
That could be good. But that could be good, right? It's not XRP, but it's
it couldn't be
development. It's something unique that Ethereum might not have. Where if you're doing an ERC20, there is no clawback mechanism to pull it back potentially. So if you have one built in, and maybe there is a reason why you're building it. I want to build an infrastructure. I want to put a payment solution together that's strictly digital asset, but I want to put a mechanism like a credit card to do a chargeback. I want to be able to claw it back. But if you're going to do that, there has to be a mechanism. There has to be a third-party overseer. I don't know if that's software. I don't know if it's AI, if you have to prove your case. I know that like a PayPal, for instance, that if someone, like if you're selling on eBay and someone says, oh, I have I didn't get the item, or, they can be lying outright, and they send that to eBay, PayPal would pull back the money immediately. So you had money in your account, you no longer have money in your account. They take it right out of your account. And so is that a clawback? Is that fair? I know right now with a credit card, you know, you have to wait till the following to follow the statement when the statement's released to then contact the credit card and then say, hey, I don't recognize that charge. Are they immediately pulling it from the vendor, or do they go through an audit process to say, hey, you know, did you really do it? Did you purchase? Did you not purchase? Was there a transfer of goods? You know, somehow the credit card company is working through that, and sometimes it's a write-off. You know,
Right.
so they can't screw the vendor if it's not the vendor's fault. You know, if there's like fraud or something, and someone went in and used your credit card to buy something from a vendor, it happens all the time. And they say, "Did you, you know, acknowledge that charge?" No, that wasn't me. I didn't do it. Are they going to
You
then
did it,
punish?
Jeff,
You
did
know,
it.
so that's what the credit card. So you need that kind of a mechanism within crypto, and if they can figure that out with the XRPL and have asset class that needs a clawback, it could be great. They need something different and unique.
Yeah,
It has to start, you know.
I don't know if it's that. I'm not for that myself personally, but that defies the whole idea of decentralization for me, but it's a deal killer. Oh yeah,
Interesting.
Tron says maybe nobody wanted to build on something they thought was a security for 3 years. That's a good point. I
It's
think
a
we should
really
end it
good
here
point.
too.
Really good
Daniel,
point.
we got lucky to receive a $30,000 grant from ICP to develop another project that kept us going. They have hubs all around the world powering small SME to bridge from Web 2 to Web 3 to help with adoption. So there you go, right there. I mean, there's you know, you
That's
get a
interesting.
grant, and the grant program for I'm sorry, it's just pathetic and pitiful that Ripple gives these grants out. You know, I mean, and again, you know, if you're building something that's going to be a fake tax, like Jeff and I are building carbon credits, and it's going to do this. You might be able to get a grant for it, but it's going to be basically a joke. I mean, there's not going to be really anything around it. Um, let's see. I'm looking at these other comments right over here. Yeah, there's a lot of good points here. But again, that's all the time we have, guys. We gotta go. It's 11:15 or 1:15 into it. Sorry, 11:15. It's 1:15 into this. It's 11:15. We
11:15. What the heck?
could do a 3-hour show, Jeff. We know that. We do.
We've been on that long. Time
So
flies.
anyway, it was a great time spending with you guys as always, and we always appreciate the comments. Man, you guys really get it. You really have some amazing thoughts. We can't get to every comment, but you know, there's always a good
Great
show
comments. We're
comments as
reading
well.
all of them, trying to build them into what we say.
Thank you and good night, says Ray Run. So there you go. Have a great weekend, all. Yeah, you too, Rob. SHX, the baby. Yeah. Yeah, we had the CEO of God, what am I having? We had her on like 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. I don't know. But SHX is doing really well. People are excited about it. So good. It's another great token. There's a lot of great stuff, man. Solving problems in the space. But Jeff, what do you got for us before we get out of here? Anything? Did I lose you?
No, I'm here. I was
Okay.
throwing up the crickets. You can't hear the crickets.
Well, I
But
can't hear.
man,
It's unfortunate that Chris
Chris
blocks it
was
out.
blocking it out. But this is a great amazing commentary. Love that. Love everybody also over on the Rumble. There's not a whole bunch of conversation on Rumble. Everyone's there on Rumble just sitting and listening, and you know, and then we get all the engagement over here on YouTube, which is awesome. We have our one viewer over on Twitch as usual, so that's great. But appreciate all of you guys. You guys are awesome. A lot of things to engage in, a lot of things to talk about. We want to keep focusing on this development. I think, you know, as a community, we have to keep pushing towards how do we further development on the XRPL. You know, the message goes out, you got to put it out in the universe, and the big companies eventually are going to look at that and say, hey, this is a valuable platform to start developing and building on. Needs a little bit of investment. Maybe the universe will tell Ripple, hey, invest a little bit more. Take one of those billion XRP and put it all into the XRPL and
Yeah.
the foundation, and you know, try to support some of these companies that are trying to build and try to find some amazing projects, not just YETIS over there, you know, what they're doing. So that's what I got to say. We'll be back with some more amazing content, a lot of great things, and maybe I'll yeah, that's what we got.
That's all we got, man. We'll see you guys back on Wednesday. We were off on Wednesday because of Valentine's Day and last Sunday because of the Super Bowl, but we will be back tomorrow night. I think may just be me solo here tomorrow. So we'll be back. We'll be doing a show. And what's that?
Be race at the race.
You'll be at the race. Yeah, enjoy it, man. It'll be awesome. All right, that's all we got, guys. We'll see you guys on the next one. Chip and Jeff out.
Are you down with OTC? Please like, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when the next video drops.